let me just start by asking you if you can tell us a bit, perhaps, about yourself and how you got to this point. What is the journey that brings you here?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Well, I was born in I was born in Vienna and to a Zionist family, and I went to live in Palestine for 13 years when I was 18 years old. And over there, I started to question my Zionist views. I had contact to Palestinians and studied Arabic. And this is when I started to question, as I said, the Zionist ideology, and I found it deeply discriminating and started the journey. In the end, I was working for a Palestinian NGO in 48 Palestine, but it was nearly impossible post the 90s, and it was really nearly impossible to be part of the Israeli Jewish community anymore, because people would treat me as traitor, and so I decided to in 2000 I decided to go back to Vienna. And in the beginning, when I came back to Vienna, I was still active trying to raise anti-Zionist voice in Vienna, but it was also very difficult. So actually, I came back only after October 7th to be vocal about Jewish anti-Zionism in Austria.
Was there a moment or a particular event that you think of when you think of this moment where things shifted for you? Is there something you saw? Is there something you were exposed to? Or was it more of a progressive, sort of a gradual process?
No, it was a very sharp understanding moment. I was sitting with my Arab teacher who was Palestinian, and who is Palestinian, and he told me the story of the expulsion of his family. They in 48 they had to leave they were expelled from their village, and they found refuge in another village, a neighboring village, and they were never allowed to go to come back to their original village. It's a well-known story. A lot of Palestinians this happened to a lot of Palestinian families, and all of a sudden, first of all, I didn't know that this happened in 48, and second, I was thinking how he would feel as a Palestinian being Israeli citizenship, having Israeli citizenship, and living in this country. And then all of a sudden, I also thought, wow, this Zionist ideology is just racist, discriminatory, and I started to think about policies such as, for example, or words such as, for example, the plan to Judaize the Galilee, which are, I mean, just completely racist ideas and spoken out freely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the first pushback that you saw or that you felt? I mean, was it your family? Was it your environment back in Israel, or was it, or when you came back to Austria?
I mean, it was immediately um, all my Jewish friends started to question my beliefs and my work at the Palestinian NGO. But I mean, the first pushback was I was working for a leftist Zionist peace camp, and I started to. I was in charge of seminars for German-speaking people on Israeli politics, and I started to invite people to that were outspoken anti-Zionists, and in the beginning they didn't realize, because the programs were in German, but somehow it came out who I was inviting. and they started to object it, and I had to leave my work, and then I started to work for the Palestinian NGO.
So let's just jump forward many years, I suppose. So I mean, I think we all seen an enormous amount of violence over the last 15, 20 years, and for me, which I never really had Zionist commitments, I must say. So I think that I had some luck. I come from a family that was really quite anti-nationalist, and that included Jewish nationalism. Americana was actually a bad word in my house. And I think I was always very aware, but I do think that something shifted for me radically around 2022. I mean, Naftali was already a pretty monstrous presence, and the fact that the putative left or the center joined Naftali in government for me was kind of remarkable. I mean, Naftali had been the guy that landed in Pittsburgh to defend Trump after the attacks on the synagogue while the bodies were still warm. So, I mean, it was a very disturbing presence. But around 2022, when Netanyahu comes back to power and comes back to power with this sort of set of thugs, basically, this very unpalatable group of people, and they put into motion what will become essentially the Ministry of Security under Ben-Gvir, and Smotrich makes its first appearances. The signs of extreme violence became very quickly very visible to me. So I think that as I began to see this, and the attacks on Al-Aqsa and the attacks on people, that really sort of set the terrain for me for what was to come. Is there a moment in the let's say years previous to the 7th of October, and I'm only using it because for the Israeli narrative is a hinge, in which you really thought that things were shifting, or that you felt that things were actually becoming worse? Or do you think it was pretty much status quo all along?
When I left Palestine,
In what year did you leave? I'm sorry.
2000, I came back to Austria, to Vienna. I was not like things couldn't get worse. Just couldn't get worse. It was at the bottom already. I saw the Israeli society, and there is a difference between 2000 and now, but still I was sure that things will not change from within. I knew this already in 2000. There was no chance that things will change. I I had the feeling of totalitarianism. I even wrote at the university an article about it, a semestral work about it, because I felt that you were not able to mention freely your anti-Zionist views, and so things couldn't get worse. Okay, so it's a different grade of violence, of course, yeah, but the direction was clear already in 2000, and I mean, Ilan Pape mentioned it as well. It starts with the education system. It's also a question of birth rate. Religious people get are having now a bigger representation in Palestine, Israel, and yeah, things. But in principle, it was the same in 2000 already, and before, of course. And it was very racist in 2000, and I mean, I the minute I understood how Palestinians live within this state, let's say in 48 Palestinians, I could not attend any situation, like banal situations, like eating in a restaurant, and listening to communication on my own table or on the neighboring table, where all the time you could hear discrimination and things. And I promised myself to speak out every time I couldn't be silent. So every time I'm sitting somewhere listening to someone, I all the time had the impulse to to speak out. I couldn't continue living like this. So in this sense, what I'm trying to say is it was there in before. I mean, it was not that violent, but it was there. It's Zionism, It's yeah.
There were moments that for me were very significant. I mean, at the beginning of the second Intifada, the killing of Mohammed al-Durra, I think it really was the first time that I saw, even having a very, I think, very good conceptual understanding of the degree of oppression and dispossession. It was the first time I saw something that I really thought was monstrous. I mean, this child, the father trying to shelter him and basically just the Israelis just shooting him, and then the attempt at covering up. And I think that in some sense, I mean, I feel that there was, I don't know if I would say that it was not there. It's just that I think that there is a degree of cruelty that to me became progressively worse. I don't know if you agree with that.
I remember 87. I remember Rabin mentioning the first Intifada, let's break their bones.
Hmm.
Let's break their bones. I mean, it was young Palestinians throwing stones on what? On tanks. And the answer of Rabin, I don't have to mention what happened to him afterwards, and he he received a Nobel Prize. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
he was telling the soldiers to break the bones of those. I mean, could it get more violent? Could it get more? No, I I knew
Can,
it.
can I ask you? I mean, is there? I mean, is there? Obviously, you're building this conference under the rubric of Jewish anti-Zionism, and I am really quite curious because for me has been really a central question since the beginning of this slaughter, of the genocide of Gaza, the meaning of my Jewish identity, which, as we were talking previous to this conversation, as we were trying to arrange the date, um, I was telling you that I had a very strong sense that my Judaism was tied with certain ideas of values. And some of them had a lot to do, I think, with the fact that I grew up in a country which had an anti-Semitic past. Probably nothing quite like Austria or Germany, but certainly Argentina saw its fair share. Um, and there was a almost intuitive understanding that the democratic rights and legal provisions and constitutional guarantees were central to protect us and permit us to have full lives in Argentina. So I think that there is something in that space that I take from my father and from the environment in which I grew, which had a lot to do with Judaism. Um, and for me, and I would like you to talk specifically to this issue, I feel that there is here a deep sense, I feel a deep sense of betrayal. Is this a sense that you share at all, or is this something that you is more distant?
Well, I grew up in Austria in, let's say, 70s, 80s, and there was a lot of anti-Semitism there, much more bold and outspoken. And this was one reason why I decided to go to Palestine. But my Judaism was mainly centered about Israel and Palestine. My feeling of belongings, because I was never religious, and so this is this has changed after being an anti-Zionist Jew. Actually, what was left of my Jewish identity?
So what is left, I mean, of your Jewish identity?
Yeah, I ask myself this question a lot of times, but I would even go that far and not say that I'm Jewish, because for me, the Jewish identity is really connected to religious, and I'm not. So what I can say is that I have Jewish roots. I come from a Jewish family. I have experienced living in Palestine, and this forms my personal history. But I would not mention myself as being Jewish.
Mm.
You know,
What
it's
about
it's
culture?
for universal values, and yeah, each of us has complex identities. You know, I'm also a mother. I'm also with my personal story. I'm also a woman. I'm also, I don't know what
Mm.
else. You know, so yeah, Judaism is part, but I mean, I have two kids. I later married an Austrian man who is not Jewish, and I have two kids, and yeah, we celebrated whatever came up. You know, we celebrated Eastern and we celebrated Hanukkah because I liked the candling of the lights, and but I always had a problem with because I understood the prayers. I always have a problems with those prayers.
Mm.
So it was for me such only, you know, only on the on the surface to celebrate those things. But
But still, you're building a conference which is centered about around the very idea that, I mean, something that, would be claimed by most distant observers to be a contradiction. I mean, Jewish anti-Zionism. It could be just a conference of anti-Zionists, which there are plenty out there. So why for you still at this stage the emphasis on the Jewish question?
there is a longer explanation and the shorter one. The longer is
Okay.
the longer is we are not dealing with Jewish identity on this Congress. We don't. We are raising our voice as those people whom the State of Israel claims to speak for. So, in this sense, it is Jewish because Israel claims to speak for Jews, for us, and we and we speak out and say no, this is not in our name. Why do we think this is important? Leads me to the second answer, which is the short one. We held a Palestine Congress in October last year, and I was part of the organizers. And we had the Jewish community in Austria did a media campaign in the public screens, saying that during the Palestine Congress is taking place in Vienna, Jews don't feel safe. And Hanin Zoabi, I don't know, she's a former member of Knesset from Balad. I showed her, she was there, and I showed her this campaign, and she said, why are you leaving it to them to define what Jewish people think? And then I thought, yeah, she's right, but I don't know how to do this, because I mean the Jewish community is totally Zionist here. Maybe we are a small number of anti-Zionist Jews in Austria. But still, I thought it's very important to do it. To do so we decided to do a congress, of a Jewish anti-Zionist congress, and I thought, okay, why should we do it in Vienna? Because Vienna, everything started. I mean, Herzl lived here. He wrote his Judenstadt here, so it's the place to make this. It's going to be the first, as far as I know, the first one, Jewish anti-Zionist congress. And so, yeah, it should be here. It should be in Vienna.
I often think that, I mean, the reason why, well, Judaism for me is a complex thing, but I would say quite plainly that I'm fully Jewish. That, I mean, although I have absolutely no religion commitments, I mean, I am a secularist, I'm an atheist. Um, I would say that for me, Judaism is culturally deeply rooted. I mean, I recognize it in things that, I'm a Woody Allen Jew, for the lack of a better expression. That neurosis is in me, and some of the impressions. I mean, besides what I was talking about earlier about values, And Hannah Arendt has this one line, which is when you're attacked as a Jew, you defend yourself as a Jew. She was thinking about anti-Semites, but actually, often when I think about that line, I'm thinking about Zionists, because I think that making me complicit of genocide is a form of attacking me and attacking my Judaism, and I need to defend my Judaism in a pretty strict sense. I think that there is a breakdown, although you do mention, and I hear you, that the majority of the Jewish community in Austria and Vienna is Zionist. Um, I do detect across the board, and I would say even for places like Argentina, certainly the US, certainly Berlin, where you have a lot of Jewish immigration over the last 15 years, which is actually very liberal. You have a serious breakdown, if not a complete collapse, of the legitimacy of representation of Jewish institutions of the Jewish body, in the sense that in Berlin, you look at the Jewish institutions, and they're not really just Zionist. There are really some very thick expressions of very reactionary politics. And I think that by and large, that is not what you would see when you hang out with Jews in the streets of Berlin. Of course, there are some, many perhaps, but there is certainly a very significant amount of people that do not feel that those are legitimate representatives of their position. Um, what's your sense of this? I mean, sorry for this is very long, but I do sense that there is an incipient civil war inside Judaism that has a lot to do with what you're pointing out. Is this also your sense?
I don't know. I mean, it has something to do, of course, with my family history, because I mean, for me, yeah, my grandparents and my grandmother, they they had to flee from Austria, from Vienna in 38, and they first went to Serbia, and from Serbia they went to Palestine, and the biggest part of my family came back in 47 already, and my grandmother stayed there until 55, I think. So I was very, of course, as a young woman, interested in why they had to leave, and what was happening in Austria, and I took a deep dive into finding out when I was 13 years old. I was looking at terrible pictures from concentration camps, mass graves, and reading texts of letters that were smuggled out of concentration camps, and I was deeply moved. And the question that I asked myself was, how could that happen? How could other people let that happen? And this was the time where I promised myself that whenever I see, it doesn't matter who, whether Jews, non-Jews, whoever is discriminated at, or I mean, genocided, of course, yeah. I will not stay quiet. I see it as my duty to speak out. I don't know if it's because of this special heritage, but I would like to think that this history, and this is universal history, that anybody should and take it to prevent further. Doesn't matter if we are Jewish, living in an Arab state, or living in South America, in Africa, wherever. I mean, this history doesn't belong to Jews. It's
Yeah.
it's something universal, and everyone can learn from it, and take it, and I think that would be so important, and the way we, not me, but in Austria and in Germany especially, and these learnings were dealt with, is that okay, we have to stand behind Israel, and behind and we have to protect Jewish life, and this is completely wrong. They got it completely wrong, and they're again on the wrong side of history.
It
Yeah.
is. remarkable. It's really, I mean, it's really kind of incredible to see, particularly where when I think that it's incredible to hear people defending what Israel is doing in the name of protecting Jews from anti-Semitism, because it's a de facto expression of complicity, Jews being complicit.
Yes. Yes. And yeah, they took it wrong again. And yeah, I wanted to say something, but now I'm out of. Sorry.
No, it's okay. So um, I was wondering if you. Sorry, I have a bit of a coughing attack.
I'm sorry.
Um, what are your impressions about Gaza as of right now?
I now remember what I wanted to say. I wanted to say that it makes me so sad that all of these victims, not only during the Holocaust, but also, I mean, so many other people died in during the Holocaust and during the war, as you know, millions. And all of this should be, you know, with no learnings, just, you know, with at least, I mean, at least we will have to take it further for the future to prevent something like this happening. But this didn't happen. So this makes me extremely sad that all those victims are for nothing. This is what I wanted to say. What was your question again? I'm sorry.
My question is if you have a. I mean, I suppose my question is not obviously what is Gaza, because I think that we it, but what is your account of Gaza for yourself and for the community to which you belong?
For me, I mean, I'm crying a lot. I don't know what to do. I'm helpless. And I think this is why I'm trying to be politically active, because otherwise I would go insane. I cannot. It brings back memories of get those concentration camps, mass killings, mass graves. I mean, we have it all there. I saw it when I was 13, and I see it again now. And then again, the world is not preventing it. Although, I mean, oh, during the Holocaust, people at least claimed that they didn't know, but now we cannot claim that we don't know. We just see it, and I'm like so many people, just helpless, and moved from being completely sad and crying to aggressive and hating, and you know, the whole spectrum of feelings. I mean, and also helpless, just helpless. How can that be? And I think from this point I thought it's important to do this congress, you know, this point, from this anger, from this. And I want, and I hate the Austrian government, the European government, for being complicit, for and you know, 1 week ago, not on purpose, in a coffee, I met the former minister of foreign affairs, who voted, I think, 3 or 4 times against the ceasefire in the name of Austria. And I saw him and I jumped at him and I said, you know, can you still sleep at night? Do you sleep well at night after all you did? And he said, yes. He was like, you know, he was like Teflon, like, I have no problem to sleep at night. I hope you sleep at night as well.
It's really very difficult to understand, because this is something that I see repeatedly, and I see repeatedly not only in political and public spaces, but I see it even among people that I have known. And there are many ways to obviously dismiss it. I mean, you have heard, as I have, of Bollywood and made up numbers and this kind of thing, but it's almost impossible for me to reconcile, because I also have spent many nights crying, and I have spent many nights going to my children's bedside. And as parents, I think that if this was horror already as a father, I mean, to me, it's just, it's undescribable, the degree of nightmares of what I'm seeing. And seeing this and knowing this, it's extremely difficult for me to understand the Teflon attitude. I can only imagine that none of this has been seen, because I often think that somebody that has seen what I have seen and does not have the reaction that I have, which is of revulsion and horror and crying and terror, and every child feels like my child, like I wish I could hug them. I feel they belong to another species. It's not that they don't belong to my family of political values or to Judaism or like to democratic society. They are really not. I mean, I feel that they do not belong in my humanity. I cannot understand somebody that sees a child burning alive or like shaking, trying to like wake up their dead father, and does not have a massive reaction. I just don't understand it. And I think that one of the issues that I see is that, and perhaps this is sort of my question, I think that much more than Jewish identity has been collapsed here. I wonder what happens to our societies, what happens to our claims of democratic representation. How do we continue to be Europeans after this?
Yeah, I mean, I had a, I will never forget it. At one of the demonstrations, somebody came up to me and he said, crying, and he said, "I don't want to be a human anymore. I want to be a dog. I want to be a bird. But I don't want to belong to this species anymore." And yeah, I mean, yeah, what can we say? It's yeah. Um,
Talia, are you
I
sorry?
think it's so important to to fight back and to not lose this. I mean, we so many. This is really an important time, and we all of us have to to do everything we can to dedicate ourselves to make a change in Gaza, but not only in Gaza, uh, worldwide. I mean, we know we are fighting a system. We are fighting mighty people. We are fighting greedy people. We are fighting, but we are a lot, and we are people with conscience, and we are the majority. And I don't see any reason why we could not win this fight. We have to do this for our children, for ourselves, for humanity, for everyone.
It's also a question of what kind of humanity people like you and I want to be part of, right? I think that one of the things that to me remains striking about what has happened with political parties, with people like with people like Biden, with people like Merz, with people like, I mean, Scholz here, the SPD, Macron for months and months and months and months, is that I think that if we can agree that Auschwitz was in terms of numbers, or the Holocaust was in terms of numbers, much, much bigger, I think that we should also agree that the genocide in Gaza, or the war of extermination in Gaza, is by orders of magnitude much bigger in terms of the number of accomplices, in terms of the number of people that remained quiet, that decided that they didn't want to look, that decided that Israel has a right to defend itself, or that decided that Hamas, and decided that the 7th of October, the 7th of October was the song that could be sung over and over and over again like a mantra to justify so much killing. This is, I think I'm very sympathetic to the sense that I don't want to be part of this humanity. I don't want to be part of a humanity that cannot see, or that prefers not to see, and will allow children like their own to be grinded under the wheels of brutality. Uh, I wanted to ask you, are you optimistic?
Yes,
What,
yes, I
how?
am. I am optimistic because I also I had a talk with a dear friend who said, it's over. It's over. Gaza is gone. There is nothing, like, you cannot save it, and it's over. And I try to feel what, maybe he's right, yeah. But what does it make me feel? How do I feel after? recognizing that he might be right. And it's paralyzing me. So I don't want to think that it's over. I don't want to be pessimistic. I don't want to. It keeps me going. And even though I'm wrong, I might be wrong. We all might be wrong. We might lose it. But I'm not willing to give up. And if I'm giving up my hope, then there is nothing I would want to live for.
What do you expect to come out of the conference? What would you like to see come out of the conference?
I would like to see a massive shift in the perception of Jewish voices. I would like, especially for Austria and Germany, to see that there is some people getting disturbed because now their narrative is somehow exploded in front of their eyes. There is another Jewish narrative. Jews are not Zionists, and it's not anti-Semitic, obviously, to be an anti-Zionist. So this is something that I hope will mobilize a lot of people to be in solidarity with Palestine. This is one thing. And this gives us, and if this solidarity movement grows, it gives us a chance to be more to be more to be able to change the politics of the governments of our governments in Europe and all over the world. If this movement grows, if there is a lot of people on the streets, we will have the possibility to change the government, and the politicians would have to change their what they say. So this is the other thing, and this will lead to hopefully to a mass boycott and divestment and sanctions movement, which I think is really necessary, because I am sure I'm totally sure that there won't be a change from within unless from within the Jewish Israeli society, unless there will be massive pressure from outside, which will be which the people will feel financially. And I have a friend I was talking to yesterday. He's an anti-Zionist Jew living in Palestine, and he's waiting for this to happen, although it might harm him himself, of course. Yeah, but there are people that want, and there is a call from anti-Zionist Israelis calling the world to engage in boycott and divestment and sanctions, to help that this system of Zionism falls down, and there will be a decolonized Palestine soon. So it's a long way, but we have to go the way until we reach it.
Dalia, thank you very, very, very much. That was super kind of you. You gave me a full hour. I know that you're probably at this point really quite busy since the conference is approaching. I mean, people will be able to see this, and this conversation will be posted and reposted. And in the article, of course, there will be a link to the conference call. So, I mean, people, I suppose, need to sign up, or they can just show up.
Yeah, I mean, everything is on the homepage. You can easily reach the homepage by www.stop-zionism.at. And there is tickets. There is also tickets for people that cannot afford big contributions. You buy a ticket, you get the QR code, and then you can enter the conference. It's 3 days, 2 days of discussions with intellectuals and activists, and 1 day where we will connect and try to initiate actions. All of the activists, also from leftist parties all over Europe, will be there, and we can do networking, we can connect, and we can be more efficient in our fight. to make a change.
Unfortunately, I won't be there, but I certainly wish you the very, very best. And anytime you're willing to give me a few minutes, especially after the conference, to hear what happened, how it went, I would be delighted to have you on.
Thank you. I will do that, and thank you for reaching out and having me, and then giving me the possibility to speak here for.
It's been a pleasure. Be
Thank
well.
you too. Bye.